Hi, guys. Welcome back to Freedom Brigade Nation. We are so honored to have Jeffrey Prather with us. For those of you that don't know, I can't imagine there's anyone in the country who doesn't know. But Jeffrey is a retired special operations soldier, former DIA agent, ex DEA special agent, and he was a whistleblower on the deep state and is now just helping the Patriots. Welcome, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. You had mentioned some stuff on your most recent show that was where you were talking about the border and the Mexican cartels. And you said that the Mexican cartels were actually firing on the border agents Monday. Did you see that in mainstream news, Andrea? I missed that completely. Right? This is why you have to be watching people like Jeffrey to keep up
Yes.
on this, and you made a
Mhm,
statement. You said when cartel members fire on the US government, that shows things have changed.
mhm.
Can you explain that statement? What do you feel like has changed? How is the game? And obviously it has. But I'd like to hear from you exactly how has it changed?
Yeah, sure. But first, congratulations on all the great work you're doing for Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the Bible Belt. It's all red. It's all Trump, and you're behind a lot of that. And I've been following a lot of your great work for a lot of times now, and keep it up. So congratulations on that. On the border, I was a DEA agent for 19 years until they fired me for being a whistleblower, never being charged, never being convicted. But I was on the Nogales, Arizona, Nogales, Sonora border for 10 years. So I did all kinds of border operations, tunnels, everything. And the cartels generally do not like to engage U.S. law enforcement personnel because I was extraditing the brother of Rafael Caro Quintero, Miguel, who Rafael killed and tortured our agent, Kiki Camarena. And that shut everything down. So normally, if you kill an American, not under Pete O'Joe's administration, but any other administration, that shuts everything down. But now they're openly firing on border patrolmen. They're openly, I think probably the Vermont border patrolman was involved in that. And this stems from the new war that Trump has declared by designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And so he made a war on the cartels. And that means, as foreign terrorist organizations, that brings in the military. The problem that has always been is you're trying to have law enforcement, whether it's DEA special agents or Border Patrol agents, trying to do law enforcement against paramilitary and paraintelligence armies. The cartels have armies. One cartel has a bigger budget than all of DEA, for example, and you can never fight soldiers against cops. It just doesn't work. So Trump has now changed that equation completely, and so we see the result of that. The first thing he did was he had a DEA task forces in Aurora, Colorado, do a raid on Tren de Aragua folks, along with task force officers, hitting the most violent that are coming in from Venezuela. So all the way up from South America through the Isthmus of Panama, all the way up. That is the cartels plazas all the way up from Venezuela, and that was his first action right after his declaration of the war. And their counter to that, the cartel's counter to that, I'm saying, was the firing on border patrolmen in Texas on the island, and also the killing of the border patrolman in Vermont. And so I'm assessing that there's going to be a lot more violent cartel activity within the United States because the cartel rules have now changed. The way the cartels operate in Mexico is not the way they have operated in America. They're everywhere in America. They're in every large city. They're in most small towns, but they try and generally keep a small profile so they don't draw law enforcement presence. But now that they've been designated as foreign terrorist organizations, that is really generating a war status.
That's pretty serious. So what do you suggest to our listeners to prepare for that or to combat some of that? Because you're saying they're in every major city.
Well, they clearly are. They've been in the major cities for a long time. In Mexico, and I've done cross-border operations, and I've done a lot of scary things in my career in special operations and in intelligence, but the most dangerous stuff I ever did was cross-border Mexican operations. Mexico is much more dangerous than Afghanistan or Iraq. Um, so what they really need to do is support their local law enforcement. Don't be extorted by locals. They'll come into a neighborhood, buy up the entire neighborhood, control all the grows, and then intimidate the neighborhood. And at first, they also spread a lot of money around, but eventually, they're kind of like locusts. They destroy everything. I saw them do that with Nogales, which is a great little town, great people. And at first, the banks and the car dealerships love all the drug money coming in, but they eventually take over everything and destroy everything. And so, a really active support of local law enforcement. I'm not really ready to say support federal law enforcement. It has not been reformed yet, especially the FBI. In fact, I've talked to you and I have talked to former attorney generals and officials in Oklahoma, and we've both warned them to stay away from federal task force right now. Now, that may change. It looks like it's changing, but it hasn't changed yet. But I think a lot of more cartel in the continental United States, violence is going to happen. It's already happening. It's going to continue to happen.
When we had Terry Newsom talking to us about what was going on in Chicago. He's out there kind of doing a lot of just like on the ground reporting, and with his background, and he talks about the gangs. I mean, he was talking about the violence, what was coming with an open border. They were flooding in, but they were also getting assistance to stay in hotels and get housing and get money and everything. And they were these huge like Venezuelan gangs that were staying in these government assisted properties basically. And I mean, he was talking to other gangs and things on the street there that were saying these guys are like worse than the worst. He was talking to some other ethnic gangs, like that. He was saying that, the black gangs and stuff on the streets in Chicago were coming to him and saying, this is not good. Like when you have other gangs and other criminal organizations saying, what's happening at the border is making our streets even more violent than they even want to see. It's like they're coming after our kids and they don't play by any rules. So the violence that we were seeing in Chicago with the open border was fascinating, what he was reporting to us.
I mean, that's very true. And there's rituals of cannibalism and torture that they go through. But the big thing to understand is Trump has also he's talking about the death penalty for anybody, any pedophiles. And really, that's what the cartels are doing now. So in my day, my biggest cocaine seizure was 2,000 pounds of cocaine in 1993 on 30 horses through Mariposa Canyon in Nogales, Arizona. 2,000 pounds of cocaine, one seizure. I seized many 100-kilo. My biggest marijuana seizure was 10,000 pounds. But that was in my day. With Pedo Joe's legalization, where the DEA, the Border Patrol, DHS have been actually running, pimping, trafficking children, women, drugs, arms, and terrorists formally into the country, into hotels, into camps, has made it, 100 times worse. So, it can be fixed, but it's a colossal move. But the point is, the cartels are not going to want to give up that territory, and they're not going to give it up easily.
I totally support the death penalty for the pedophilia. When I was going to school to get the criminal justice degree, that was one of the things that was pointed out in the classes. There has never been one person that has rehabilitated from that crime. There is no coming back from that. I think it's something spiritually, but when you've crossed that line, there's no coming back from it. There's not one case. And so I'm 100% for what Trump is saying on the death penalty on that. They're always going to be predators.
Well, and in the Charity has also had other individuals on our show speaking about communities in South America, I should say countries, but areas in South America where people down there are going, all of our crime went north. Okay. That's so right. The border got open
in El Salvador.
Our streets are great. There's no crime here now, but they also emphasized this scares us because we're worried about America, because America will fall because now all our crime went over an open border and is destroying your country. And if America falls, it's not good for us. So even though they're sitting there with crime not on their streets, right, they're very scared what this means to the world if America continues to let it happen.
Yeah, well, so that's my mission statement: is rescue our fallen republic. Very similar to yours, but I say the republic is fallen, and it's run by the Praetorians. As the Roman Praetorians eventually picked who would be Caesar, I think the Praetorians of the CIA and FBI control who's in charge. Now, I think Trump has upset that. We got to wait to see. So far, those things are very good. But in the 80s, I was with PSYOPs and Special Forces in Central and South America. In the 90s, I went back with DEA Special Operations Snowcap program, and we had a big presence there. So we were dominating there. Then 9/11 happened, and everything shifts over to Afghanistan, and then the fake into Iraq. And so Central and South America were left vacant, and that has been filled by the narcos, all the cartels, China, as well. And so we're just starting now to pay attention to that. That's also why you see Trump talking about the Panama Canal. I spent a lot of time in Panama as well. But all those countries, I'll tell you, I worked at every level. I've worked at the top levels of government. I've walked into dirt huts with having Indians, Aymara, Mosquito Indians feeding me. Generally speaking, Latin American people, Central American people, South American, they're great people. They're family oriented, they're religious, they're hardworking. They've just never had, good government. And we've just had the same thing now. But yeah, all their crime has come up to us now. That's very true. I totally agree with that.
Well, it doesn't help. I do believe we're winning, and this is the one thing Jeffrey and we disagree on. I think that we can still, the republic hasn't completely fallen, right? And we've just agreed to disagree and still try to save it, right? But we've got our federal government that is continuing to make POWs and continuing to come after us. And I think that with Trump in place, it was a huge win, and we keep turning around. But they still tried to take him out, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions. And Andrea, we've had Chet on this show before, out of Pennsylvania, and our
Yep.
brigades in Pennsylvania have partnered with him in a big way, and we've brought him on board with us because they're trying to get a petition into the grand jury. So Chet and Jim, hi guys.
Howdy, how
Good to
are you?
see you. So Chet, I wanted to get
Hello.
an update from you, but before we get into the update, can you give me just like a 2-minute, for those that didn't hear the last couple of times you were on the show, why you're doing what you're doing, what some of the unanswered questions are, why we're even wanting this petition for a grand jury investigation?
Sure. Well, whenever I was on the show back in November, we had discussed an effort in Butler County, PA, to get a grand jury impaneled to investigate the shooting, which occurred at the July 13th, 2024 Trump rally. As everyone knows, then President Donald Trump was shot in the air. Had he not turned his head at the last minute, he would have been killed. We had a local resident that was murdered there. His name is Corey Compiture. And we had two other Western Pennsylvania residents who were seriously injured. David Dutch and James Copenhaver are their names. So at the time of my last report, there were a lot of unanswered questions. There was a Senate investigation that was being stonewalled by the FBI and the ATF. There was a congressional task force trying to get answers, and it was being stonewalled. There was a state investigation was underway, but they just weren't releasing any information. We'd requested Butler County's DA Rich Goldinger to impanel a grand jury, to ask the presiding judge to impanel a grand jury, that is. And, at the time he was still thinking about doing that. And you'd think that given the nature of these horrible crimes that committed in his backyard, that he'd be interested in seeing that an investigation was carried out. Well, he since declined to request our request, claiming that he believes it's being properly investigated. And so that's kind of where things stand with him. We have 9,000 people in our county who have signed. We have 9,000 people have signed our petition, asking him to do that, asking him to impanel this grand jury. And despite that, and despite the fact that it's really his job to investigate that, he's just not going to go anywhere with it. So is that a good enough interaction there, Charity?
I think so. I think it's great. So
Yeah.
where are we at now? You said we're up to 9,000. Last time you were on here, I think we were at 6,000. So I know that we've continued to drive. We've talked about it a couple times without you being on the show. But I just wanted is 10,000 still the goal? Are we trying to get more? Where are you at? Where are you headed?
Would certainly like to get more. The truth is that it doesn't matter how many signatures you get on the petition. There's only one signature that counts, and that's the presiding judge's signature on impaneling that grand jury. And so I think that what we'd like to do is have your people reach out, to our DA, ask him, if he would, ask him why he's not impaneling that. And also, we have a new Republican AG in Pennsylvania. His name is Dave Sunday. And I think it would be good if people reached out to him as well to see if there's anything that he could do at the state level.
Okay, guys, so you heard what he's asking. We need to call in numbers and tell them what we expect. We need to blow up their phone lines. And so we call Attorney General Dave Sunday and go ahead and give us the number.
Okay, Dave Sunday is 717 787 3391. And I'll say it again, 717 787 3391. And then there's also District Attorney Rich Goldinger, and he is at 724 284 5222. Once again, 724 284 5222. Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about, we've been trying to get information, since some of these investigations have been in progress for 6 months now. We've tried, we've issued a number of right to knows, both at the county and the state. We've done a right to know to get the state's investigative report, and we just haven't received that. And we've also have done that at the county. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the effort, Jim? To get information?
Sure,
Thanks.
glad to. We filed 8 right to know requests for the county of Butler, requesting documents related to the assassination report. They denied most of them. They gave us one. That was the one we asked for every right to know request that was filed since the assassination up till about the middle of December, I guess. And they did fill that one. And after that, they went pretty much silent or denied. So we took them to court in Harrisburg at the Open Records Office. We have an appeal pending, and we should have a determination shortly on that one. If we win that one, then they're going to have to give us a few documents. As far as the congressional investigation, was led by Mike Kelly. He's our congressman. And Mike Kelly, he's a good man. He did all he could. The ATF, the FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, you name it, any 3-letter group, pretty much stonewalled him on information. So his entire 180 pages is a redacted reenactment of what they think happened and what they want us to know. But it didn't answer so many questions. And there's one paragraph towards the end of that 180 pages of, it's interesting reading, but it's not telling you much. Where they said, well, we just didn't get the information we needed from these other organizations, which I find very troubling that our Congress can't get the information. And that's why we want a grand jury, because a grand jury can do a lot of things, and I know Jeffrey's just itching to talk about, and that's a grand jury can do so many things that a congressional investigation can't begin to do. And the most important is to indict people and hold them accountable. And so far, only one lady's taken the hit, and that was the head of the Secret Service lady. She was pretty bad, and they kind of discovered that when they questioned her a couple days after the assassination attempt, and she was immediately gone. I personally have interviewed with approximately 50 news agencies around the world. And I bring that up because guess who they never asked one question? I'm the chairman of the Butler County Republican Party. I have never been contacted by any agency of the government asking me what went on that day. And I've got a lot of things to tell them because I was there from early in the morning till the actual shooting and a long time afterwards. And they never contacted me, and I doubt they missed. I'm pretty sure they missed a lot of other people. They were very selective in who they talked to. And when you read the congressional report, they redacted everybody's names. There's not one person you could follow up with as a citizen to find out, oh, what did you really see? But I was fortunate enough to have an impromptu conversation with a state policeman. Just bumped into him. I won't tell you where, so they can't track him down. And he told me some things that were very troubling. One was the governor of Pennsylvania and the state police were told not to bring certain equipment to that rally. They did not want any horse-mounted policemen there. They didn't want their dogs there. They didn't want their drones there. They didn't want their SWAT car, and they didn't want their SWAT teams. That's our Pennsylvania State Police. I think I saw 3 state police officers shortly after the shooting. They came on the scene and were gone, like disappeared. They didn't work with our sheriff's department to bring in their people. They didn't have drone equipment there. They had drone equipment there, but it wasn't working. They could detect drones and figure out where they were. Well, Matthew Crooks had his drone there. The guy that shot Donald Trump and killed Corey Captor. He had his drone up and flying, but the drone detection equipment was not being manned by a person that knew how to use it, and it wasn't working. The communications was awful. They've left the radios that the local police could talk to the Secret Service people. They left those radios sit, even though they knew exactly where they were, and they were told to take them so that they could communicate with the local police. And I could go on and on for an hour. I don't know how much time you have. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and some of them are pretty damn good. And there's been a lot of reports put on the news. One was a great one was from the Gateway Pundit. We gave them some information and they acted on it. And we're slowly but surely working our way through all the news agencies that I have contacts with now that came to Butler County, videoed me, interviewed me by telephone, videoed me on radio, newspapers, whatever. But as far as my government was concerned, cricket.
So the news contacted you,
I'll
but
send
the
that back.
investigators didn't.
Yeah.
I had people on the phone 1 hour after the shooting. The New York Times had me on the phone. Okay. 1 hour after.
Yeah.
And for the next 60 days, I had to give my wife $5 every time a news crew came to the house. Okay. We filled a jar full of $5
Yep.
for her. And we spent 4 or 5 hours with some of these people, showing them the site and everything. And they, people in France, the BBC, Italy, Turkey, Japan. I mean, I could go on and on. All these people were so much interested in what happened and the real truth. Again, not our government.
Well,
So-
Back to you.
Jeffrey, I
all.
can't wait. I want to hear Jeffrey weigh in on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Well, thanks. Well, first, guys, I really salute your effort and keep it up. So a couple things. I've also done a lot of dignitary protection, presidential protection. The last guy I was guarding was Santorum alongside Secret Service guys. I am a federal firearms instructor since 1993. So I shot with the Secret Service back in the day. They were very good back in my day. The DEI Secret Service, I think, is deliberate negligence. And most of them there, I think there was only one Secret Service special agent there. The rest were HSI folks. They were all abysmally terrible. Even the guy that Trump just promoted didn't get him off the stage. I can tell you from doing this, something like that happens, it's not a choice. You're going off the stage. You're going to our Alamo really quickly. But I can also tell you, because I've looked in detail, I did a lot of casts on my show with this. I had John Cullen on, who did the ballistics, that the deep state, that is the intelligence community, the FBI, the Secret Service, the CIA, were definitely in on this. There's not that level of incompetence. The former Secret Service chief did admit that there was aerial surveillance. I said this from the beginning, that there was aerial surveillance, that they're classifying it. It exists, and they finally did admit it does exist. If it wasn't the local police drone, it was the Secret Service drone. If it wasn't the Secret Service drone, it was an FBI drone. If it wasn't the FBI drone, it was an NSA satellite. But aerial surveillance does exist without a doubt. I assess that as 100% true. Remember the Kyle Rittenhouse case where the FBI finally let their drone footage be shown, where the FBI agent was running behind the child rapist and the wife beater. So it is a setup very clearly. And the shooter, I don't think was Crooks at all. Most of us don't think it was Crooks. I think Crooks was a patsy, already shot. And there were multiple shots as well. You can see the Secret Service counter sniper team, or maybe it's the local, shift fire. They actually turned because there was fire coming from the trees also. And they went out to investigate a tree stand or something. So they're in on it, and you're not going to get anything because they're going to keep it as an open investigation. The FBI is going to have it as an open investigation. The FBI is now the cover team for covert operations. That's what they've been doing for a long time with Hunter, with everything else. As long as it's an open investigation, you're not going to get anything. And then they brought in the Iranians to make it for all of a sudden Crooks is tied into the Iranians. And the reason they did that is because it's now foreign enemies, and so it's classified intelligence. You're doubly not going to get anything. That's what they're doing with all of that. But with Trump coming in and declassifying the Martin Luther King and the JFK stuff, assassinations, it looks like it will follow then, if he is able to strip FBI of their Praetorian power, that this could come about. Also, if you've got a new attorney general in there, just appointed by Trump, because he should fire them all. He should fire everyone and bring in his own guys. Then I would suggest you go have a meeting with him privately and say, this would be a great feather in your cap, because they're politicians. I've worked with a lot of attorney generals. I've worked with, a couple of attorney generals, Janet Reno for one, Paul Charlton for another, and lots of assistant United States attorneys. I've done lots of cases with them. They want to look good. They only want a case that they can win. They never want a case that they might lose. So you got to make them look good. So a private meeting with this guy saying, look, bringing this to light about Trump's assassination and helping him destroy his enemies, which is the deep state, is the FBI, fits. It's a win-win for everybody. That's how I would move forward. I don't think, frankly, I think your effort is wonderful. I don't think your petitions are going to do much at all. Sorry to say that. They're just going to, that is not going to move that. But if that's a new appointee of Trump, then a private meeting with him could definitely move things forward. I don't think it's going to happen right away, but the trend I see with the Martin Luther King and the JFK assassinations being declassed and finally released would then set a nice precedent for, well, then Mr. President, what about yours? And that would help defeat his enemies. That's how I would look at this. In reference to grand juries, so a grand jury, what happens is something happens and then somebody is injured. So you have in your community people who were injured. The Campore family, for example, they have certainly been injured. Others have been injured there. Those people then file a complaint with a federal complaint. They should do a federal complaint with the FBI. They should, not that that's going to go anywhere, but also local. And then the complaint is investigated by, if it's federal, for example, it might be me. Okay. And then I investigate that. I open a case file on that. And then I present the case, file to the duty attorney, or if you're going to do it local, it's a district attorney. And they say yes or no if this is worth looking at. And so you got to have a good enough evidence, because lots of times they decline stuff all the time. Now, of course, they shouldn't decline this at all. There's plenty of evidence, and you should have a lot of injured victims signing this complaint. This is where I'd put your effort, is the more community people signing the complaint for injury, then the attorney, because it's a popularity thing, whether it's federal AUSA or district attorney, or you should do both, then moves that forward. Then the agent, the detective or the special agent opens the file. Then the agent goes before the grand jury or the law enforcement. So I did grand jury every Wednesday. Every Wednesday for 19 years, I was before a grand jury. And I'll tell you, going before a grand jury is nothing. We say you can grand jury a ham sandwich. I could grand jury my grandma, because it's just me presenting my facts. The criminals don't get to present anything. The subjects don't. And all the grand jury is saying is this a yes or no investigation to move forward? So that's and I'm talking to the federal procedure. Obviously, I did not do local. All my stuff was federal, and everything was felony. Everything I did was under Title 21 USC 841A1, which is possession with intent to distribute. But in 19 years of doing hundreds of grand juries, I only had one that the people didn't go on. So that's the procedure I think you should follow. And with your local DA, I'm not exactly sure. But again, there needs to be a complainant, so that then there is a complaint taken, which then can be investigated by an investigator at some level, federal or local, and then is given to a district attorney or assistant United States attorney, and then is presented to a grand jury. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
So you guys see why Jeffrey
sir.
is counsel. So there's I've told many people before on the brigades that when you guys come across stuff in your communities or across your state and you don't know how to handle it, that we have big guns we can call and say, hey, what do you think we should do here? What's the strategy? Jeffrey's one of them. I've called him about a few things before. And so I appreciate him. When you join the brigades, this is the kind of backup we get because we're in this together. But Jeffrey, I have one question. You did say that it would be helpful for them to get a private meeting with the AG. Now, do you believe this petition with 10,000 signatures on it would be helpful in getting that private meeting? I mean, that's helps them stand out.
That it couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt. But I hate to say it, but the petition by itself is not going to do anything. But if you get somebody, if he's freshly appointed by Trump, and you go in there and make an appointment, he's not.
No, he's elected. He's elected by the people.
No, the U.S. attorney is not elected by the people. The U.S. attorney is.
Oh, okay, I thought you were talking about
the U.S. attorney is appointed by the attorney general, who is appointed by the president. But the president, he's been firing a lot of them. I don't know why he hasn't fired all of them. I just had on Jeremy Brown's attorney on my show yesterday, and she's having a lot of trouble. Jeremy should be out like all the other January 6s. I've been interviewing them. He's out of Florida. Pam Bondi's up, for certification, and that hasn't happened yet. And he's still in. And that's a travesty. And the reason he's still in is the same reason why they're not calling you back, because Jeremy Brown will probably be the last one to get out, because he had the FBI come to his house beforehand to recruit others. That's a conspiracy that the FBI is in on. That's obvious. And there's 1,500 other January 6ers who are eyewitnesses to the conspiracy coup of the second term of President Trump. And you guys are all eyewitnesses to the assassination attempt. And that's exactly why they're not talking to you.
Yeah, we say all the time, conspiracy theory and conspiracy. They throw that around and twist it to make us sound crazy every time we use the term. But this is the definition of conspiracy.
Who came up with the term? Who came up with the term conspiracy theory?
CIA in the 1970s.
The CIA who are committing all the conspiracies against the American people. I mean, come on.
That's right. The CIA doesn't collect intelligence; it collects people. The
Exactly.
FBI doesn't stop crime; it manages crime.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it right there. Yeah.
The whole term was made to discredit the truth. So we just, and then they will plant information out among patriot groups to try to make us sound crazy. So you've got to be careful that you know what you're talking about.
Well, and I'm exhausted being in this fight with you, Charity, as long as we have been. I get exhausted when people go, oh, you can't use that word. You can't use that word. I mean, in my state, you can't talk about election fraud. You got to say something else. Like, I mean, come on. I can't say election fraud. I can't say militia. Militia is part of our Constitution. I'm not talking about going out and hurting people. Know what a militia means on a constitutional level and a government level.
But
okay?
it's what's
And then
insane.
I say conspiracy, and everyone goes, "Oh, a conspiracy theory." No, conspiracy is a real thing. Okay.
But guys, also, while you're out there collecting information, because you can help an investigator, they'll take your help if you're solid. So do the periphery stuff. For example, what did come out was that the doctor who pronounced Crooks dead, the body was supposedly on the roof all night.
Mhm.
Right? Okay. Then who was guarding the body? Why did it take all night? Where's that chain of? So that body was then a crime scene, an evidence scene. Which, of course, the next day, what the FBI do? They hosed off the crime scene. What did the FBI do at Waco? They bulldozed all the remains into the fire. They either destroy evidence or they conceal evidence. But you've got to have. I would bet that there were locals guarding the roof overnight. I doubt if the FBI special agents were up all night on the roof. I bet there's some sheriff's deputies, maybe even some security guards. Like, hey, stand up here, climb all night. Those are the guys. That's where you start looking to build your case from the ground up. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense.
Yes, sir.
Everyone's taking notes.
I know. I see.
When I turn my head, I'm
Taking
engaging
notes.
with the chat too. So I'm engaging with the chat and people talking right now, and we're all taking notes. So this is great information.
There's just so many unanswered questions, and if you take a look at, like the medical records and things like that, why were those never released? And it's like it's almost like this has a lot of commonalities with some of these school shootings and the way that information doesn't get released.
I think those are set up too. I think those with AIs and SSRIs via children's violent video games, which is a typical way for spies and terrorists to communicate. A lot of these things are run that way too. Why did they clean the Crook's house? Why did they take all the silverware? The silverware can leave DNA fingerprints. I'm sure the Crooks family didn't know that, but I bet the FBI guys that did come and visit knew that, and so they collected up all the silverware and they cleaned the scene. So in a covert operation, if you've ever seen like Munich, or the Antifa was doing this all the time, which is how I knew this stuff was covert operations, is you have the recon team. So if you've seen Munich, they're going after the Munich shooters, the Sayeret teams, the sort of Gideon teams. So there's the recon team, then the shooters come in, they shoot the guy, and then they leave. And then who comes in? A guy comes in, walks in, picks up the shell casings to pick up the evidence. Antifa was doing this in the last 4 years as well. That's a covert cleanup team. Today, the FBI is the covert cleanup team for likely CIA hit teams. And I'm not talking movies. I was inside on all this. I understand all this. And so that's why your head-on approach, while valiant and noble, I don't think is going to get you anywhere. But they're very corrupt, and corruption makes people incompetent. To be good at this stuff, you have to do it all the time, over and over and over. And so because they lie about it and they fake it, they leave lots of trails everywhere. Like the second assassination, the Ruthie guy with the colored. I mean, that's all they got left to bring, that guy. That's how bad it is. That's how bad their informants, their assets are at this point, because nobody believes them anymore. They're not geniuses. They're not giants. They're just failures with father wounds, and they are beatable. but you got it. But you can't go straight on head at them. You got to go around the edges and the periphery at them.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible how much the American people can scream for transparency and just be ignored. I mean, they just hide everything and try to, like you were saying, they're just like, they don't want us to even think about it anymore. And so God
The
bless you.
executive branch is out of control. And
Yeah.
I was in the military, law enforcement, intelligence. They just show you what they want to show you. It's going to be that's the other war that Trump has started, is the war on the deep state. And he's got to just obliterate the FBI and the CIA, just tear them down to nothing, or nothing will change.
The other
Cash
problem
Patel will be a good help for that. Praying for that nomination.
I mean, the other problem you have is just the complicit media. That's not. There's so many open questions in this. If you just start with the initial narrative that they gave you, that this mentally ill young man, somehow planned and executed this complex operation, and he did so in an area that he wasn't familiar with, and he traveled up there and did this by himself. But yet nothing is known about him, and you know that the FBI can look at every aspect of your life, everything that you've ever written. They can track where you've been. They know who you were talking to. They interview everyone that you ever talked to, but yet nothing.
Have you seen the round that ricochets off the railing? Okay.
Yes.
So there's
Yeah, we've seen
multiple
that for
shots.
sure.
The real shot likely came from the window below, and it was likely a 300 blackout suppressed round. And likely the guy walks out. There's film of I forget who he is now, walking out, because they are in on it. But they are no longer running these agencies. And this is a perfect time to move forward on this now.
But Jeffrey, you said they're going to tie things up and the processes on purpose so that these things can't be published and exposed yet.
Trump has got to get control of the DOJ. The key position is Pam Bondi and Attorney General, because if it's a corrupt Attorney General, then the DOJ is corrupt and criminal. That's what we've had. We've had a criminal enterprise for the last 4 years, where they're running kids, women, drugs, arms, openly. So he's trying to get control of that. So if you get a new Attorney General in, or you convince this guy that he wants to go with the winning team, then you've got a chance at this. And that's just the reality of this. But this would be a great case to be made. I mean, that's what I'd be saying to him was, look, this will make your career, is you solved what happened. The problem is you're going to come across the FBI. You're going to come across the CIA. And then they've got congressmen paid off. They've got fake news guys paid off. Just like right now, you see RFK. Well, he's slaying it right now and making them all look ridiculous. But they're all in for big pharma Kia vaccines, but they look terrible. They're destroying themselves in the process. So you got to get them to destroy themselves and think unconventionally, not so conventionally, because they're controlling the field. They're controlling law enforcement. We saw that under the psyop of COVID, is the cops just went right along with it. They were part of it, where they should have stood up to it, just like the churches did too. So you've got to go around the periphery to build the case, and also show them how this will benefit them, because they are politicians after all.
Wow. Well, I appreciate your words on this, and I know you're right. That's why I go to you for strategy, and I'm like, okay, this one we don't know what to do. Chet, I see your mind just going. Jim, do you guys have anything you want to say or ask? I think it's a beautiful conversation to be having publicly, because the people need to know, and the brigades across the country are facing different situations, and we need to understand the landscape.
Yeah, I think it's quite a dose of reality that Jeffrey gave us, about what we're up against. I think to some degree we understood that, but it's good to hear. Jim, do you have any comments?
I just wanted to tag on to some of the things Jeffrey brought up about conspiracies. I've been asked by many news agencies, well, the last question they usually ask, do you think this was a conspiracy? And I tell them, well, there was a lot of coincidences. But here's one question you got to ask yourself. Where did the kid, 20 years old, get explosives? Okay, and the detonators, and the remote thing to set it off. Where did he get that? The second thing you got to ask is, what happened to the second car that they towed away immediately? It was a white Toyota, I believe. And it had explosives and a detonator ready to be set off there too. Now, I was sitting about probably 50 yards from where that car was parked when the bullets started flying over my head. And I can tell you, they'd have set that off. There was 27,000 people there if there was one. They'd have killed a lot of people and probably destroyed a lot of evidence along with it. But just ask that one question, and that's the ATF. That's the thing they don't want us to know. Where do you get the explosives? And then start asking where the other people recently, the one in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas, had the same type of explosive. And it's a very hard to get explosive. And what kind of explosive did Crooks have in his car? Now, if they all had the same explosive, you can tie all three of them together. And I'm not a nutball, okay? But answer just that first question.
You're using way too much common sense. You're speaking way too much logic here.
Go further than that. What about the January 6th pipe bomb that the dogs walk by, that the police walk by? Because it's a training device. Because it was put there by an FBI rep. It's obvious. And I think the FBI has a fetish for bombs. I think every time they're putting one of these things together, they go, and we got to have a bomb too. That's what some of us think. That it's kind of a sick thing with them.
They didn't want the dogs, the bomb sniffing dogs there. That's why they didn't. That's why the state police didn't bring in their dogs. Those dogs are good. My daughter trains those dogs, and she knows they can smell anything. They can smell something in a swimming pool. So, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of
one is still two, right?
Crooks was the dangle, I think. Which the dangle is look over here while we do something over here. It's an intelligence term, like a scam, where the shot for the ear was coming from the window below, and then the shots on the sniper team were coming from the wood line. But the biggest thing to understand about sniping is that the real effect is psychological. Remember, I started in PSYOPs. So when they assassinated JFK, which is everybody pretty much agrees now, CIA, Mossad, Mafia, doing that. But the message was there, hey, get in line or you're next. And that was a powerful psychological operations message, a PSYOP. But when they miss repeatedly, there's also a powerful subtext there too, which is we're not giants, we're not geniuses, we are failures, and we can be beaten. And that's the message they keep sending. By the time they did the second guy, Ruth, I mean, that was almost a comedy show. Of course, the Secret Service guy missed from 5 feet away, multiple rounds. I got to tell you, as a firearms instructor, that's pretty bad shooting.
Yeah. Well, and Jeffrey, how do you feel about? I've been fascinated with how all of us have cameras and videos on our hips now, and there's cameras and drones and everything in the sky. I mean, we're seeing, the deep seek and all the stuff going on with China. I mean, I know that I'm being looked at 24/7 and there's an eye in the sky on us at all times. So I think that's kind of interesting with the JFK assassination to now. I mean, in real time, we were having people like Jim on the ground going, what's that? Who's that guy? What's happening over here? And we've got it on footage. And then when we see the J6 corruption in the courts, they were throwing out video evidence or saying they're not going to use audio evidence, because I think the tech world we're living in is going to be something that backfires on them. Like what's been used.
No, you're exactly right.
What's been used for evil can be used for good.
This show, my show. I already did a Sarah Westall show today.
I love Sarah.
All the resistance is building, and they can't stop it. The mainstream news media, which is sponsored by the intelligence agencies, which control. Where's the only place that Anderson Cooper worked before CNN?
Yeah.
Where'd he work?
CIA.
CIA, exactly.
Yeah.
They run that. They own that.
Hmm.
But they're dying. The average age is 70. They're dying off. Nobody's watching. The alternative liberty media is coming up, and it's an information war. That makes all the difference. And so, yeah, we are winning, and we can win, but we just got to be committed and also outsmart them at their own game. But the other thing about that is so how many people were at the rally in Butler?
27,000 at the first one and 101,000 at the second one.
2,700 at Butler?
27,000.
27,000 eyewitnesses with iPhones were dismissed.
Wow. Yeah.
Think about that. If I was running that investigation, nobody's leaving. We're checking all your phones right now. And then what did they do with the stands? They're gone.
They're
Did a
gone.
bullet hit the stands? Yes. It's on videotape, right? So then it's part of the evidence, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the crime scene. What they do with the stands? They took them down.
Took them down, packed them up. Yeah, the whole scene was gone in
Yes.
about a week.
Yeah.
There was nothing left, and nobody got in.
But-
Nobody got in.
The body was supposedly up there overnight. That means somebody was there for chain of custody. That's a place where you can start.
Wow. Well, Jeffrey, thank you for coming on. Chet, thanks for giving us an update. I still think you guys should go to petitionpa.org and give Chet something when he's going to the AG that way he'll listen. Maybe he can get this meeting that Jeffrey's talking about. You guys, we are taking back this republic. We are winning, but we cannot sit back and wait for somebody else to do it. You are the movement. This is a nameless, faceless movement. And it's going to take 4 hours a month of your time through the brigades, just 4 hours a month. I know the enemy is after your time and nobody has a lot of it. So if you will work with other patriots in your community, go to freedombrigades.com. We'll help you get started and we'll help you save your community, because if we save the community, we're going to save the republic. You guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks so much for having
you.
us on.
Thanks.